Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, I warmly welcome you to the International Conference on Health Sciences 2021. We really appreciate you taking the time off to be with us amidst your busy schedule. Today, we have some distinguished guests lined up to educate you, and we really hope that you learn something today. Before commencing the proceedings for the day, let us showcase our unity by paying homage to our university. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the University Anthem.
Sri Lanka Pinbar Randirani Srinivasa Maha Aganagare Sri Jayawardenepura Sarasavi Sri Namaya Randavav Lomudune Hikkaduwe Siri Sumagul Samidun
Velivitiye Sorat Bandu Yatidun
Vigikala Vidyodaya Vidu Bimadun Eliyen Divi Magasarasau Sri Lanka Pinbar Randirani Srinivasa Maha Aganagare Sri Jayawardenepura Sarasavi Sri Namaya Randava Lomudune Ayuktiyedi Vivadashili
Asatyayedi Vicharashili
Viyat Sabhamed Samajashili Viyatun Nidaya Pobayau Sri Lanka Pinbar Randirani Srinivasa Maha Aganagare Sri Jayawardenepura Sarasavi Sri Namaya Randavav Lomudune Vidya Uppatatan Setta Vidya Uppatatan Setta Vidya Uppatatan Setta
Before starting the proceedings for the day, let me cordially invite the Honorable Chairperson of the Research Committee, Professor Shamini Prathapan, to welcome the gathering.
A very good evening. Our Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor Sudanta Liyanage, our Dean, Senior Professor Aloka Pathirana, Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, our orator today for the Faculty Oration 2021, Deans of all faculties, registrars, bursars, librarian, emeritus professors, colleagues, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Research Committee of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, a warm welcome to all delegates to the International Ceremony of the International Conference on Health Sciences 2021. The conference, previously known as the annual sessions, returned to the faculty premises after 13 years in 2019. The 14th International Conference on Health Sciences 2021 has become history as we once again host this prestigious conference on a virtual platform, webcast worldwide from the faculty premises again. This year has been a tough year to all of us as frontline healthcare workers and researchers, with our fraternity being hammered intensely. While living and providing healthcare services through the only known major pandemic that we may ever see and experience in our lifetime, In terms of health and economy, we should not forget that research is also one aspect of this pandemic for survival. Today, the world is at the crossroads of this pandemic, of what we have seen in the past 2 years and the step into the future. As John F. Kennedy said, I quote, "All our problems are man-made, therefore they may be solved by man. And man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings," unquote. Thus, the problems and the responses that we shape through research should result in better outcomes in beating this pandemic, ensuring health care for everyone, and preserving quality health care. This would be the time that we also focus our attention on who is suffering most, why, and what can be done about it. We need to prepare the grounds to emerge from this crisis and with more equitable and sustainable communities. Thus, this conference was aptly themed, Exploring Challenges to Make a Difference. This theme would help us to meet the challenges, opportunities, and the needs of the 21st century to make a difference. The world at this point needs more science, research, and development, which I hope would point to ways in which we can transform research into hope with real impact on people's lives. I must express my heartfelt appreciation to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sudantha Liyanage, and our Dean, Professor Aloka Pathirana, for their support in all endeavors of the Research Committee. I must pay my appreciation to our orator, Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, in giving an insight into one of the unknown research areas in Sri Lanka, chronic kidney disease. We are proud of all our oral and poster presenters for their research activities and fantastic presentations, and congratulations to the winners. A note of appreciation to the academia for their thorough and timely review of the papers. In any given occasion, there will always be people who exerted so much effort for its success. All credit goes out to my committee in stepping up with their wise advice and brilliant suggestions in organizing this virtual conference. They have all worked extremely hard on the details of important aspects of the conference. May the deliberations imparted through research pave the way to accomplish our theme of this 14th International Conference on Health Sciences 2021 and approach the future with open eyes and open arms. Once again, I welcome you all and wishing you a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. And now, we would like to take a moment to celebrate a special event happening in today's conference. And that is the launching of the book published by the Research Committee of the Faculty of Medical Sciences. In order to present the book, I cordially invite Senior Professor Renu Wickramasinghe.
Professor Sudantha Liyanage, Vice Chancellor, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Professor Aloka Pathirana, Dean, Faculty of Medical Sciences, Our orator for this evening, Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, Professor Shamini Prathapan, Chairperson of the Research Committee, Dr. Varuni Thennakon, Secretary Research Committee, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The Research Committee is proud to launch the book History of the Research Committee of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayawardenepura on this very special occasion. Compiling this book was the brainchild of the chairperson, Professor Shamini Prathapan, bridging the gap and enabling us to acknowledge the contributions of the Research Committee to the strengthening of research in our faculty. For me, as the editor, it was a very special journey through memory lane to see and document how the Research Committee evolved during the last 25 years. The first Research Committee was established in 1995 by none other than Professor E.R. Jans, and the first academic session was held in 1997. From 2010 onwards, the organization of the academic sessions became the responsibility of the Research Committee with the support from the faculty. Through the years, the academic sessions have evolved from a local one-day session to an international conference spanning 2 to 3 days. And the first international conference was held in 2018 to commemorate 25 years of the faculty. We will be playing a short video prepared by Dr. Manori Gamage on the book. I am happy to invite you to go through this book, which is available in digital form, and the hard copy will also be available soon. Dr. Varuni Thennakon and Dr. Hasita Disanayaka were responsible to designing the cover of this book. In conclusion, I would like to thank the editorial board and the entire committee for the support given to me in compiling this book. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.
Next, I would like to invite the guest of honor of today's sessions. The guest of honor of today's session is a gentleman who has worked immensely in order to make the colors of University of Sri Jayawardenepura fly high to great heights and to maintain its legacy as a leading university in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Senior Professor Sudanta Liyanage.
Good evening. Professor Aloka Pathirana, Dean of Faculty of Medical Sciences, Chairperson of the Research Committee, Professor Shamini Prathapan and her team members. Orator today, Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, and I think this is the 14th International Conference on Health Science, which is going to be held today. And I learned that there are about 148 abstracts were received, and we are going to have a very fruitful scientific discussion in the evening. So in your career, I think the research are one of the most important thing, because during your teaching time, you get knowledge. So then in your practical classes or in vivas, etc., you apply that particular knowledge. But how to solve an issue, I think that is a very important thing in your life. So therefore you have to perform research. By performing research, basically you are improving your many skills. One of the most important skills going to be your analytical skills. And how you going to select the best solution for prevailing problems. So problem is always there. So when you have a problem, unlike a question, you don't have a one definite answer. You may have several solutions. You can start thinking, or you can start working with so many solutions. The best thing is you have to pick the best solution out of all these solutions. So therefore, doing research is a very, very important thing, and especially for the young scientists or young people who are involved with research. That is very important, because especially when you are young, you can't, that is extremely difficult to find a better solution or the best solution out of all. So therefore, the picking the best solution or getting the best solution come up with some experiences. So doing research means not just a one thing. So you have to continue all these research. When you are continuing all these things, you are getting a lot of experience. So once you have experience, you can very easy to solve all these, most of these issues. So I think this international conference, this is not limited only to the Sri Jayawardhanapura University undergraduates and the graduates. So that's basically open up for several other universities as well as some international people and the scientists. So therefore, when you are discussing your findings after your research in a well-disciplined society, that is also very important, because most of the time the other people may come up with some very constructive criticisms. That is also very, very important. Once you complete your research, you have to discuss all these findings with the other people and with your peers. So they may give a lot of new ideas. So you can add all these new ideas to your already found or finding things. So then you can again think about a better solution for your problems. So that is also important. So always you have to rethink about your strategies. You can redesign sometimes your proposals to get the better results. All these things are extremely important, because then only you can see a good solution for your problem, as I mentioned earlier also. So I would like to thank all the faculty members of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura Faculty of Medical Sciences and all the people who have submitted their findings to our 14th International Conference on Health Science, and I hope evening going to be a very fruitful one, and finally you will end up with a very good conclusion. Thank you very much.
My next invitation goes out to an individual who is well known to breaking past the traditional boundaries of education by constantly supporting the field of research. Without him, this endeavor would have not been possible. I am privileged to invite the Dean of Faculty of Medical Sciences, Professor Aloka Pathirana, to grace us with his thoughts.
Guest of honor, Senior Professor Sudhantha Liyanage, our Vice Chancellor, members of the academic staff and the non-academic staff, my dear students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy that we are able to hold this totally virtual conference to showcase our progress in research this year. The theme this year is exploring challenges to make a difference. This is quite apt, as even organizing the conference of this magnitude is quite a challenge, let alone conducting research. I know it's not the same as having a physical meeting. There are some drawbacks with less glamour. Active participation is limited with minimal interactions, which I consider as an important component in a physical meeting to foster bonding and forge alliances to further develop research-related activities. But at the same time, I see many positives in a virtual conference. It delivers the same scientific information to even a larger audience at a fraction of the cost. The real reason for having a virtual conference is, of course, to limit physical contact during the pandemic. However, at a time like this, where we are facing serious financial issues, this cost-effective method, I feel, is a welcome alternative. If we make an effort, we could minimize the drawbacks of virtual activities. The capable organizers of this conference, I am certain, have gone to great lengths to achieve this. Our faculty, which was established in 1993 as the 6th medical faculty in the country, had its inaugural research session in 1997. Thereafter, we had regular annual sessions with a few interruptions until 2018, when the sessions were upgraded to an international research conference. This year, we are conducting the third of its kind. The details of the activities of the research committee has been compiled to a book, which is to be launched at this conference. Research is an integral component of the medical profession. We have taken many steps to ensure that our undergraduates get the necessary understanding, not only to conduct meaningful research, but also to give them ample opportunities to get involved in practically doing it. All these efforts need a platform to present. This conference is an ideal event for this. The pandemic, which has been affecting our work for almost 2 years now, has affected research as well, like most of our other work. This is particularly in relation to clinical research, where patient numbers and interactions with them has been heavily restricted. However, I was happy to be informed by the organizers about the high number of abstracts of good quality which has been submitted this year. This is testimony to the enthusiasm of both students, staff, and others in conducting the quality work they have been doing during these difficult times. As academics, we too have a responsibility to conduct research to further the science and the art of medicine. Having an annual research conference helps to foster the much needed collaborations with other researchers in our field. The orator this year is one of the most respected senior academics of our faculty, Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya. She is due to retire from active service in the university this year. Professor Vanigasuriya has demonstrated that even a busy clinician could do high quality research. I respect her for the commitment demonstrated in all aspects of an ideal academic during her career. As in the past, this year too, our conference is filled with events of high quality by renowned individuals from Sri Lanka. I wish to thank all the resource persons for their commitment and valuable contributions. A conference of this magnitude is not an easy task to organize. In fact, I feel that it is much more difficult than organizing a physical conference. Technology we have is still not time tested. We are also novices in some aspects. Therefore, the preparation needed is much greater to help this event run smoothly. I am blessed as the Dean to have a wonderful, friendly, energetic, and capable staff to work with. I haven't felt any pressure, and the staff has been extremely supportive. I don't and cannot claim any accolades for the success of this event, but I will definitely take responsibility for any shortcomings that we might have. Finally, I wish to commend all our staff members, particularly those in the research committee led by Professor Shamini Prathapan and the energetic secretary, Dr. Varuni Tennakon, who have worked tirelessly to make this event a success. Thank you.
Now it's time for the Faculty of Medical Sciences Oration 2021. And I would like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, Professor Aloka Pathirana, to introduce The orator for tonight, Senior Professor Kamani Wanigasuriya.
Professor Jasinge Kamani Pushpalata Wanigasuriya, MBBS, MD, MPhil, FCCP, FRCP and Honorary FRACP. Professor Wanigasuriya graduated with MBBS second class honours in 1979 from the University of Peradeniya with distinctions in anatomy, pharmacology, forensic medicine and obs and gynae. She obtained the MRCP UK in 1990 and MD Colombo in 1993 and was board certified as a specialist in general medicine in 1995 by the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo. She is a fellow of the Ceylon College of Physicians, Royal College of Physicians in London and an honorary fellow of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians. Professor Wanigasuriya joined the Faculty of Medical Sciences of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura in 1995 and is currently the Chair Professor of Medicine. She is an honorary consultant physician at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital. She is a postgraduate trainer and an examiner for the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, and is a member of its boards of studies in medicine and family medicine. She has also served as a member of the specialty board in nephrology. She was the president of the Ceylon College of Physicians in 2010 and is the current co-editor of the Journal of the Ceylon College of Physicians. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Wanigasuriya is the director of the Center for Kidney Research of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and is responsible for facilitating and coordinating research by faculty members on kidney diseases. She is also a member of the Ethics Review Committee of the faculty and has been the chairperson of the Research Committee, activity lead of the Skills Lab Development, and a member of the Task Force in Skills Laboratory and Capacity Building in Research. Professor Wanigasuriya has generously given her expertise to the nephrology services in Sri Lanka. She was responsible for developing the nephrology services and the dialysis unit of the Colombo South Teaching Hospital and is a member of the Steering Committee of Renal Diseases Prevention Research Unit at the Ministry of Health. She was also a member of the Technical Advisory Committee of the National Task Force in Investigation of CKD in the North Central Province of Sri Lanka and the Authorization Committee for donor selection of the kidney transplantation program of the Department of Clinical Medicine of Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. Professor Wanigasuriya commenced her research as a senior registrar and obtained an MPhil from the University of Colombo in 1995. A prolific researcher, her research interests are in the fields of chronic kidney disease and diabetic kidney disease. She has been involved with research on chronic kidney disease in the North Central Province of Sri Lanka for over a decade, trying to unravel its etiology, and has established many local and overseas collaborations. Her seminal work in CKD has been recognized with the President's Award for Scientific Publications and the National Research Council Merit Award for Scientific Publications. It is a pioneering research in the area of CKD, the scourge that plagues the people of our country today, that is recognized tonight with the award of this prestigious Faculty of Medical Sciences Oration 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to invite Professor Kamani Wanigasuriya to accept the Auditor's Medal and to deliver the Faculty of Medical Sciences Oration 2021.
Senior Professor Sudantha Liyanage, Vice Chancellor, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Professor Aloka Pathirana, Dean, Faculty of Medical Sciences, Senior Professors, other academics of the faculty and the university, invitees, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a high privilege to be here this evening
to deliver the prestigious oration of the Faculty of Medical Sciences at the International Conference on Health Sciences 2021. I sincerely thank the Research Committee for inviting me to deliver this oration. Throughout history, mankind has faced a number of epidemics of diseases. Today, we are in the middle of the SARS-CoV virus pandemic, which has affected over 200 million cases and killed almost 4 million individuals all over the world. At the outset, let me pay my tribute to the unsung heroes of our country and the world over, healthcare workers, scientists, ordinary citizens who are contributing in many ways to combat this pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, reminiscence involves sharing thoughts and feelings of one's experiences to recall and reflect upon important events in one's life. I cannot think of a better time, as my career in the university is nearing its end, to recollect my thoughts in the topic dear to my heart, CKDU research in Sri Lanka. So therefore, my title of the oration is Unraveling CKDU in Sri Lanka, Reminiscence of My Research. During the past 3 decades, a growing number of geographically diverse regions in the world have reported widespread prevalence of a mysterious chronic kidney disease which is not attributed to hypertension, diabetes, glomerulonephritis, or other traditional risk factors of CKD. It was subsequently named as chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology, whereas some countries like the Mesoamerican countries, it is referred to as Mesoamerican nephropathy. In Sri Lanka, today there is a geographic prevalence of 15.6% in the regions in the north dry zone of the country. CKD was first reported in the north central province in early 1990s and subsequently spread to the adjacent provinces such as the northwestern, Uva and eastern provinces during the next 2 decades. The CKD prevalent areas are mainly within the dry zone of the country and shows a discrete geographical distribution. This slide elaborates the high prevalence in 6 districts of the 3 provinces. And you can see a very discrete geographical variation, which is I have marked in pink. The CKDU is a tubulointerstitial disease where you have mild to moderate interstitial fibrosis at the early stages and going on to more extensive fibrosis of the interstitium, tubular atrophy, glomerular hypertrophy, and at the later stages to glomerular sclerosis. During next 30 minutes, I will try to briefly summarize my journey through CKDU research. I have selected few studies to denote the milestones of my journey. In the year 2002, this article published in the Sunday Times caught our attention. It stated that exposure to pesticides while drinking water, farmers in the Anuradhapura district are falling ill with a mysterious kidney disease. Further inquiries into this revealed that chronic kidney disease was the leading cause of deaths in the medical wards in Anuradhapura districts, according to the Medical Statistical Bulletin of the Anuradhapura Hospital. So there was something going wrong. So this is where our journey started in 2004. Myself, Dr. Rohini Piris-John, who was in the Department of Physiology, and Professor Rajendra Vikramasinghe from the Department of Community Medicine. We made a small team. And our first investigation was in fact to find out whether there was an association between kidney disease and pesticide exposure. So we carried out a cross-sectional study where we collected few patients from the renal clinic at the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital, and the control patients were from the University Medical Unit, National Hospital of Sri Lanka, and we also had 2 control groups, and we used RBC acetylcholine esterase levels as a surrogate marker of the exposure. We did not have any funding at the time, But the Dr. Roshini Pires was doing her PhD study on organophosphates and the neurological manifestations. That gave us access to some of these kids to carry out this study. So we concluded that RBC acetylcholinesterase level in the exposed CRF patients was significantly lower than the unexposed CRF patients. This suggests a possible association between chronic renal failure, that was the terminology used at that time for the chronic kidney disease, of unknown etiology. However, it was indeed necessary to carry out further in-depth epidemiological studies. So this was our next study. We were quite now inquisitive to find out what is the underlying cause. We ourselves, having witnessed the gravity of the problem at the Anuradhapura hospital, we were quite keen to find out what is the underlying cause. So we conducted this case control study where 183 patients with CRF was compared with 200 controls. And the significant associations were being a farmer, using pesticides, using herbal medications, drinking well water from the well situated at home as well as in the field, was significantly associated. Another interesting finding was there was a family member with a renal dysfunction among the patients. So, based on the regional clustering of the disease, risk factor profile, family history, we postulated that CKD is due to a potential environmental factor with possible genetic predisposition. So, as any researcher, we again took a very deep look into the literature survey, world literature. We got some interesting findings. We saw a disease called Itai disease in Japan, which was attributed to chronic cadmium nephropathy. Another interesting CKD of unknown etiology was in the Balkan endemic area. That time they were thinking about mycotoxin hypothesis where ochratoxin was under investigation. However, after 50 years it was related to the dietary intoxication with seeds of Aristolochia plant, and the Chinese herbal nephropathy also due to the similar plant that was grown in China, first reported in Belgium due to the slimming medications. So we thought we will look from this angle. So in order to look for an environmental etiology, so then we looked at our region, and these were the risk factors we thought we will investigate. The water source becomes very important. Now we have some evidence linking to that. Or is it the water storage? Could be a contaminated food chain with mycotoxins, heavy metals. And is it the occupation exposure as the people were believing at the time, other diseases, or it is due to the extreme weather conditions. So we investigated into herbal medicines. The complexity of the pharmacopoeia in traditional medicine, although represents a high risk of exposure to plant toxins, it's also very difficult to investigate. And we found that Aristolochia indica is indigenous to Sri Lanka and India, and it had been used in Ayurvedic medicine in the past. But it has been happening all over the island, and it is not particularly restricted to the north central province. So then we thought we will look at the mycotoxins, which is ochratoxin A, produced by fungi of Penicillium and Aspergillus species. It is a natural contaminant of variety of plant products, and they have mutagenic, oncogenic and nephrotoxic properties. So we tested 98 samples of randomly collected parboiled rice, maize and other pulses and legumes from the CKD endemic Padavi and Madhavachir. We used the micro-monitor ochratoxin ELISA kit. However, we also at that time even we did not have funding to purchase this. So therefore, I wrote to the company in USA requesting them whether they could kindly donate us, and they readily agreed and they posted it, and therefore we were able to carry out this study in the biochemical department of our faculty. Indeed, we found ochratoxin is a contaminant of rice and cereals from the endemic area. The levels are below the statutory maximum limit recommended by the FAO and the WHO. So we concluded this is probably not a direct
cause for the CKDU. And there were studies which came later from other researchers, other investigators, which they also confirmed that mycotoxin is a natural plant toxin that is present in the area. So then we decided to test our hypothesis in the community. So we decided to look at the risk factors for microalbuminuria. As you all know, microalbuminuria is the earliest indicator of chronic kidney disease, so we did a field study. In the high endemic regions of Medavachiya Padaviya was compared with Rajangania, which was a low endemic area in the region. So the sample population consisted of 886 subjects, and we were fortunate to have a USJP research grant at this point. So these were the risk factors that we listed to be tested and which we tested in fact. And we really wanted to, now the microalbumin is very unstable compound, so it is very difficult to bring them to the laboratory from the region. So therefore we really wanted a point of care device, and we were looking around and we found this small device which is actually developed by the Department of Biochemistry and Department of Medicine together, which had been used in the diabetic clinic to test for the microalbuminuria. So therefore we took this small apparatus to the field, and that was our point of care diagnostic test. And when the tests were positive, we rechecked with the micral test strip, which was actually expensive at the time. So again the results were fascinating. We found that the 6.3% of women and 8.6% of men had microalbuminuria, so that was the prevalence at the time. But many years later, the WHO study, they reported a 15% of prevalence. So over about 8-10 years, so the problem had grown. So the risk factors, the smoking, hypertension and diabetes were the known risk factors. And in addition to that, again this water from the wells hypothesis was coming up. Again we found consuming water from the wells and other sources of water situated in the field, there was a relationship. And also we found that the source of drinking water in the area, in 93% of individuals were dug wells. In the binary regression analysis, again you can see the drinking well water in the fields becoming significant. However, to our relief, we did not find a relationship with the pesticide use in this community-based study. So these were some of our pictures. This was Padavi Sripura, that was the war was going on, and this is 2007. The peace accord period gave us access to Padavi Sripura, as you can see. So these clinics were conducted in the temples, in the schools, and the people in the area actually were very supportive. They were very, very happy. They had a huge problem. We were the first research team to access them. And you can see until quite late in the night, we had the clinics, and there was no place to stay in Padavi Sripura. In the nights, we had to drive back to Anuradhapura, and it was indeed a real experience for us. So by 2010, there were other research studies were becoming published, and there were research studies revealing that high cadmium in the reservoirs, food items, inland fish and soil were reported in these studies, and they also thought the fertilizer, triple phosphate, was the main source of cadmium. So this is where the pesticides and the fertilizer debate started. And also there was another study or several studies saying commonly used pesticides and fertilizers have high arsenic and cadmium. And therefore, they proposed that the agrochemical use was the main etiological factor of CKD. I am sure most of you in the audience might remember these debates. So there was a considerable media coverage, and not only the media, even within the scientific community, it provoked a significant debate. So this had some inadvertent effects on the livelihood of the people. They were already burdened with the disease, and they had problems with the financial problems. They could not, go to the field and work. the breadwinner of the family is affected with the disease. In addition to that, this gave them an added burden. Their perceptions and responses. They thought whether the cause of illness is linked to the water, so they were scared to drink water, and whether it is excessive and careless use of fertilizer and pesticides, so they were blaming themselves for the disease. And they were also very scared about to eat the food items, particularly the inland fish is the mostly available source of protein. They had a fear of consumption, and the water was the most booming and profitable business in the region at the time. However, I think these words from this famous author would perhaps explain this situation. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist factors to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts, unquote. What really happens is those epidemiological studies show us the associations, but it is very difficult to arrive at causality by looking at the epidemiological studies. So, Professor Rajitha Wickramasinghe very correctly invited us to write this editorial to the Ceylon Medical Journal, where we wrote that the cause of CKD is likely to be multifactorial. At this point in time, there is insufficient evidence to pinpoint a cause. Both the well-being of the resident of the North Central province and the enormous drain on healthcare resources and economy demand resolving this issue as a national priority. Well-designed and adequately powered studies into CKDU should be strongly encouraged and adequately funded. Right. So, little later, actually the WHO came in. You all may remember the WHO, actually I was in the research team. So, there was a national-wide study with the Ministry of Health providing the funding. So, then the clinical profile. In our experience, we did not see any of these patients actually having any features of arsenic and cadmium toxicity. If it is due to arsenic cadmium toxicity, it is very likely people will be out there with features of toxicities. However, there was dental fluorosis in some percentage of patients, telling us, look, they are exposed to high levels of fluoride. As you can see, the serum creatinine at the diagnosis was fairly high. So, they are presenting at a later stage of the disease. When 91% of them at the time of presentation, they had small kidneys. So, this is something again in the research that we will have to think about, how to come to an early diagnosis. So, in order to further evaluate this problem, we decided to do a multimedia analysis of biological and environmental samples from the region. So, we collected biological samples, blood and hair, and environmental samples, drinking water, rice, soil and freshwater fish from the endemic areas of Madavachi and Padaviya. So, the total reflection X-ray fluorescence or TXRF was the analysis that was available in Sri Lanka at the time. However, with this analysis, all these samples could not detect the presence of cadmium or arsenic. So, fortunately, we found a collaboration with the Research Triangle Institute USA. So, they agreed to join hands with us, and the ICP-MS was available to us to do the analysis. So, you will see the difference, right. So, we found in the whole blood metal levels, mean cadmium levels were high in 68% of the samples above the US reference value. However, the maximum cadmium level was below the hazardous levels. Mean lead levels also exceeded the mean US reference values. However, arsenic values were below the detectable level. So, their exposure to arsenic was not significant. In hair samples, that was the best place to look for the mercury exposure. So, mercury levels also exceeded the US reference range. However, the cadmium and arsenic in hair was below the reference values. In rice and fish, the maximum cadmium was below the Codex Alimentarius Commission reference levels and MAC for Chinese rice. However, given the quantity of rice consumed in our diet, the consumption of cadmium may be high. However, in fish, the heavy metal levels were not high. And the water samples, cadmium and arsenic in drinking water is below the WHO standards. However, the fluoride, iron and lead exceeded the drinking water standards, and the large number of samples had hard or very hard water in the region. So these heavy metal data were compatible with the studies that came afterward, particularly the WHO study and another study from Peradeniya. So these studies challenged the previous studies that I mentioned. So our conclusion from this study was drinking water is high in fluoride and hardness, and the study participants were subject to low levels of exposure of heavy metals. However, all the levels were below the hazardous levels. Or is it a so therefore, we postulate at this point, is it a synergistic effect? So now we want more laboratory tests. So quite right now, we are checking the synergistic effect of fluoride and hardness by using the renal cell lines and Vista rat models, and we are doing this in collaboration with the Center for Algae and Water Research in University of Sri Jayewardenepura. So there were other observations coming in as to the clustering of CKD users near water sources and paddy fields. And we also saw the reports that in reservoirs of Sri Lanka, there are several species of cyanobacteria were identified. So the question came, is there an association with etiology and the disease progression? So these shallow wells withdraw water from the superficial aquifer, and it is very likely that they can contaminate, that is the water that is present in the reservoirs. So cyanobacterial toxins, there are two types, which is called the microcystins and cylindrosmerspin, which has both the hepatic and renal toxicity. So our next study, we focused on the human exposure to cyanobacterial toxins in CKD endemic regions. We collected the urine and well water samples from Padaviya and Madirigiriya, which are high endemic areas, Rajangani and Galnava, which are the low endemic areas, and the control samples from Angunakola Palasa in the Hambantota district. So we found that the cell density and the cyanotoxin concentrations, as you can see in purple, which are the cell densities, and in red the toxin concentrations in the well water was high, and there was no wells in the controls, and also in the springs in the area were not contaminated. And these are the cylindrosmerspin concentrations in the well water in these regions. What I have put in red is they were above the WHO established guideline for drinking water. And we tested the human samples. In fact, the human samples also contain the toxins, indicating the people are exposed. This is from the high prevalence areas, and these are from the low prevalence areas of CKD. As you can see, the exposure seems to be less. So it is really important for us to see whether these toxins can in fact cause nephrotoxicity. So therefore, we decided to check the in vitro toxicity using Vista rats, and the control groups were fed with distilled water, and the treated group was fed with the various concentrations of cylindrosmerspin at the WHO level, above WHO levels, and this is the water from the environmental samples. And as you can see, we found that the toxicity in the Vista rats, both the renal and hepatic toxicity. You can see the serum creatinines were rising, as well as ALT and AST levels were rising. And the histology of the livers did show lobular necrosis and inflammation, and the hemorrhages in the livers as well as in the kidneys. So there was nuclear pycnosis, cellular swelling, and also damage to the proximal tubules. However, in CKDU patients, there is no reported hepatic disease. So therefore, this may not be the root cause for the CKDU. However, the exposure to nephrotoxic elements are a serious concern, as it could lead to the progression of the disease. So we also knew that we need early diagnostic marker for the CKDU because the albuminuria was detected only in 62 point of CKDU patients. So therefore, in collaboration with the Harvard School of Public Health, we carried out the novel biomarkers, urinary biomarkers of kidney injury. So we found fibrinogen and beta-2 microglobulin present in the urine have the potential of being candidates for the use as a screening tool for detection of CKDU. And we recommended that their usefulness needs to be further validated. Another step forward in this test, in this collaboration was they were able to provide us with a nanoparticle detection method of the urinary biomarkers where you could go and detect very small micro amounts of these biomarkers that are present in the urine by using the nanoparticle labeling of the target proteins followed by a detection using a handheld magnetic device. So this is a much more sophisticated method than the very early method that we used to detect microalbuminuria. Center for Kidney Research, established in 2015, provides us the much needed funding and the laboratory for our CKDU research. So we do have a novel urinary biomarker project with the NSF grant with collaboration with the Peking University of China, and also toxicological studies using zebrafish model. So this is the zebrafish facility of the Center for Kidney Research, where the zebrafish is a very useful model for the toxicological research. I think I just have to tell you a few words about the pesticides and CKDU. The review studies in Sri Lanka and other regions of the world have not shown any conclusive evidence that pesticides would cause CKD right at the moment. However, glyphosate remains a concern due to the lack of good epidemiological data. Therefore, we need more robust study designs to see the association of pesticides and CKDU. And the zebrafish model we are using to study the effects of cyanobacterial toxins, fluoride, water, hardness and glyphosate on kidneys using this model, which is a very good toxicological model. We are also planning to study the glyphosate as well. And other important thing about the zebrafish is you can even study the kidney at a developmental stage. It is very likely these environmental toxins are having the effect on the kidneys on very early stages of life, which we can test on the zebrafish. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude. Etiology of CKDU is multifactorial and related to the hydrogeology of the region. Our studies have shown a strong association with drinking well water and CKDU. There is evidence that the population within the NCP is subjected to chronic low-level exposure of 3 nephrotoxic elements, cadmium, lead and mercury. Cyanobacterial toxins may not be the root cause of CKDU, but exposure to this nephrotoxin could play a role in disease progression. So what is the research into practice? So during the last several years, the provision of safe drinking water in the region became a priority. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my message to our junior academics in the faculty. The very reason I selected this theme. Take the first opportunity comes in your way. Our research started with no funding, no laboratory facilities, but we were able to overcome the challenges and to build bridges with overseas centers of excellence, finally leading the way to develop the Center for Kidney Research. My sincere gratitude to Professor Rajitha Wickramasinghe, Dr. Roshini Piris-John and Professor Hemantha Piris, who were the other members of our research team, Professor Padmalal, Dr. Dulani, Sashi and others in the Cyanobacterial research group, to our research collaborators and our friends in the Department of Agriculture, members of my department for their invaluable support, to my husband Sarath, who was the driving force behind this work. Being a senior scientist in the Department of Agriculture, he had a genuine interest in this subject. He was sometimes, as you can see, part of our research team. my daughter Hasita and Janindu for tolerating my work, and finally to my parents who taught me should everyone, no matter what their race, religion or social status, be treated equally. Finally, I thank all the patients, families and community at large who participated and facilitated my research. I admire the courage, resilience shown by them in facing this deadly disease. My thoughts are always will be with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for enlightening us on chronic kidney disease of unknown origin. We are coming to the end of tonight's proceedings. Before wrapping things off, I'd like to invite the Honorable Secretary of the Research Committee, Dr. Varuni Tennakon, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Senior Professor Sudhanta Liyanage, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sri Jawadhanapura, Senior Professor Aloka Pathirana, Dean of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, Senior Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, Orator for the evening, distinguished guests, academic and non-academic members of the Faculty of Medical Sciences, and my dear colleagues, a warm and graceful welcome to all of you. It's a great privilege for me to express sincere thanks on behalf of Research Committee of the Faculty of Medical Sciences at the inauguration of the International Conference on Health Sciences 2021. Please indulge me for a few minutes to thank the great crew behind who helped in many ways to make this event a success. I would like to thank Senior Professor Sudhanta Liyanage for his continued guidance. He has long demonstrated his interests in improving research and innovation, and his remarks show the scope of his thinking on this important arena. Thank you, sir, for your continuous support. My heartfelt gratitude to Senior Professor Aloka Pathirana, our Dean, for the unwavering support, encouragement and guidance. Calm and collected always, your availability, approachableness and wise advice are a great boost to uplift the culture of information exchange. Thank you, sir, for your present guidance. I congratulate Senior Professor Kamani Vanigasuriya, the orator tonight, and deeply appreciate the important paradigms you are gracing to unravel the chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology in Sri Lanka, a public health concern that affects lives of so many. Thank you, Madam. Let me take this opportunity to thank all academics who generously accepted to support our sessions as judges and chairpersons. Your contribution is invaluable to us. Thank you. May I also thank the arduous work of all the academics who contributed in reviewing abstracts. Your expertise helped immensely to uplift the quality of our program. I extend a very big thank you to all presenters of free communications and posters for sharing their discoveries and for their committed contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. I express my warm appreciations to many people who have worked unconditionally to make the conference a reality. Let me first thank our chairperson, Professor Shamini Prathapan, for her commitment, integrity and leadership throughout organizing this event. Thank you, Shamini, for shouldering all responsibilities and steering us through this journey. I wish to thank Senior Professor Renu Vikramasinghe for expertise advice on all locations. She worked tirelessly to collect accurate information that spanned more than 25 years in the history of this faculty to compile the book we launched today, History of the Research Committee. Thank you, Madam. My sincerest gratitude goes to the conference secretaries, Dr. Manori Gamage and Dr. Yasoda Rohanachandra, for their dedication and invaluable contribution in organizing the scientific sessions and in the making of the book of proceedings. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also wish to thank Professor Guwani Liyanage, Dr. Janani Kottahachi, Dr. Chintika Gunasekara, Dr. Sitara Dissanayaka, and although individual names are not mentioned, I sincerely acknowledge every member of the research committee for their contribution in various ways to make this event happen. A very special thanks to Professor Basil Marasinghe and his team for providing the audiovisual facilities and coordinating the related work. Thank you, Professor Marasinghe, Mr. Manjula, and Ms. Buddini. Let me thank Mr. Kavisha Javardhana, the compeer tonight, for a job well done. Thank you, Kavisha. I deeply appreciate the enormous support extended by Ms. Lakshani, a pre-intern doctor, in handling all of his work. A big thank you to Dr. Hasita Disanayaka for designing the e-flyer and cover pages of the Book of Proceedings and the history of the research committee, and all non-academic staff members for their cooperation and assistance. At last, but not least, my deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all participants who choose to be live with us tonight.
Gentlemen, with that, we bring an end for today's proceedings. Please rise for the National Anthem, and have a nice day.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Siddharini, Surani Ati Sobhamana Lanka. Ranya Ganaya Mekamal Valatulu Piri Jaya Bhumiya Ranya. Apahata Sapa Siri Seta Sadhana, Jeevanaye Maga. Viliganu Mena Apabhakti Puja, Namo Namo Mata. Upper Sri Lanka, Namo Namo, Namo Namo Mata. Upave Apavidya, Upamaya Apasatya, Upave Apashanti, Apahada Tulabhanti, Upa Apa Aloke, Apage Anuprane, Upa Apa Jeevanave, Apa